Witnesses Bill and Harold have decided to come forward and share their chilling stories with things beyond explanation deep within and around the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. They both shared a lot of personal experiences that I think you guys will really enjoy. So, get ready folks, you won't want to miss this one.
I'm Bill, I'm from New Jersey, and I'm going to recount some of the experiences that I've had. I'm first going to go off with the entity that I encountered with me, my friend Alex and my friend Ted at D Brook Park in New Jersey. So we were walking along the trail. It was around sunset. We were just, bull crapping and doing what teenagers do, talking about minuscule things, and it was getting darker. We noticed that we were some of the last people that were there, so we decided whether or not to take the long trail or the short trail. So we ended up taking the long trail, making a bet with one of my friends, and just started walking down that way.
On our way down that trail, I started playing sounds on my phone to try and scare us, like a goatman scream or something like that.
I said, oh, that sounds like I'm not going to say it, but that sounds like a skin thing. That's what I said, and right after that we started
running. Like I said, this thing, tall, skinny, no face. It wasn't making any sounds whatsoever while moving. Just recounting the experience, it scares the hell out of me because I had anxiety attacks for weeks on end after this experience. But we started running. We were just running as fast as we could back to my car. And my friend Ted, actually, his shoe fell off while we were running, so he had to go down and grab it, so he wouldn't slow us down. And we just kept on running and then stopped when we were closer to the car. We looked behind us. That figure is like at least 200 feet behind us now. I could still see the shape and everything. So we just decided to slow down a bit and catch our breath. After that, we just started walking as normal for about 2 minutes. And I looked behind us again, feeling like we were being watched, and it's literally like 50 feet away. And that's where it terrified us the most, because I didn't know what this thing was going to do. So again, we started running back to the car. And as soon as we got back to the car, that's when we noticed that my car was the only car left in that parking lot. We got in my car and got the hell out of Dodge. Then and there, we went back to my house after dropping off Alex, and that's where I remember when you were covering the story, that's when you said that we were going to go play video games inside the house. So we were going to do that, but Ted stopped me from getting out of the car, and he just told me, hey, let's head back to my place. Let's watch a movie or something. So I ended up doing that. Next day after that, it's when he told me that the thing that was at the park followed me back to my house. That's when I was set on edge.
For 2 weeks straight, I took my dogs out on that following day, and like I was saying, a cat went straight out of the bushes and looked straight in my direction and started walking straight towards us. And that just set me off even more because, knowing the mythology, these things can take different forms, so that scared the crap out of me. I ran back to my house, I called Ted up again, and he told me there were other things that happened that I didn't, experience while we were at the trail. Like him and Alex, they both experienced some sort of scent of death that I never smelled myself. So just that experience still shakes me up all the time. And that's why, after that experience, I never tried to say that word. Yeah, horrifying experience. It really scared the crap out of me. Me got invited to go off-roading with I was calling him Jay, got invited to go off-roading with my friend Jay, and I said, yeah, sure, it's not my thing, but I appreciate the invitation. Our other friend Mem was there. He was smoking pot most of the time, so I don't smoke. I also wasn't drinking. I don't drink, just to kind of set a scene here. So after we got done, we were somewhere in the Manchester area. It was near the Brooks Bay Brick Factory. It's a place I'd gone before just to kind of walk around. It's an interesting place to walk around, but it was somewhere in that general area of Manchester. Late at night, probably like 11, 12 or so, we start heading out. And my friend Jake, who's driving, says, just let me know if you see a deer or something. I don't want to total the truck or whatever. I'm like, okay, and I'll keep my eye out. So we're driving for a couple minutes, and I see in the tree line on my side, just like some fur, I'm like, oh, it's a deer, sometimes they'll run with the cars and jump in front of you. So I go to tell him, hey, watch the deer. This thing picks up speed, jumps in front of the truck on 2 legs. The hands never hit the ground. I say, quote unquote, hands never hit the ground. Okay, looking at us, jumped, looked at us, jumped again, back into the other tree line. The tree lines were about 30 feet apart, so this thing hit that in 2 strides. And then my friend, of course, hits the brakes because he thought he was going to hit something. And we're all sitting there, it's very quiet. My friend in the back is like, he's like, I think he thought he was hallucinating because of the pot he was smoking. So he asked us, did you guys see that? And we go, yeah, we did see that. And they look at me, because my major was environmental science. I'm an outdoor animal fanatic. I'm a very logical person unless there's no logical explanation. So they look at me and say, what was that, a bear or something? And I'm like, a bear could stand on 2 legs like that. A bear can walk on 2 legs like that, but not hit speeds on 2 legs like that, definitely. Not doing a 10 or 15 foot jump on 2 legs, and it had hands, furry hands. It basically looked like, well, there's no other way to put it. A werewolf, dogman, whatever you want to call it. I only saw it for maybe a couple of seconds, I'll be totally honest about that. But I saw that thing. Eyes, I saw its head, its hands, humanoid torso, canine-like legs, dark fur. I still can't even really wrap my head around it. To this day, I'm still trying to figure out what I saw. I've gone back there during the day. I really wish I had an explanation for myself. I still can't believe what I saw with my own eyes. I'm very open-minded. I do believe in things based on just sheer probability or biology. There's no way I think we're the only intelligent life in the universe. I think things like Bigfoot can exist, just based on the fact that biology supports it. I am very much not a humanoid werewolf believer. I do think there could be things like direwolves or just large canine wolves that can exist into modern day that we just haven't found yet. Humanoid? No, that's not... I would call you crazy if you told me that. Then I saw one, still hard for me to wrap my brain around it because I know I saw it. I had 2 other people see it with me who I unfortunately don't speak to anymore. I did go to community college with them. We kind of just took our own paths afterwards. My friend did not let my other friend smoke in his truck, so all the smoking was taking place outside the truck. So I do not believe all 3 of us were having a shared hallucination, which scientifically is such a rare thing to happen because, of course, I don't have an answer, and that genuinely bothers me. So I know I just got done saying that I am a logical person, and I will try to find a logical explanation for anything that happens to me before I go over to the paranormal aspect. Growing up as a kid, I did grow up in a haunted, found out later it was haunted by a shadow person, some kind of shadow entity. And I saw it a number of times in my childhood, but it was usually when I was either falling asleep or waking up. So I tell my mom, she said, oh, you're just seeing things, you're waking up. And I'm like, okay, you're a kid. You believe your parents, you believe everything they say. But as I got older, into my early teenage years, I would still kind of see things out of the corner of my eye. And I would just play it off because I'm like, I don't think mental illness runs in my family, but I don't want to start talking about it and get locked up or anything. But when I was about 14 or 15, my mom sat me down one day and she said, the things you used to see as a kid, all the things that, like I see you react to when you think I'm not looking. She goes, they're real. She goes this, she calls it a curse. I guess depending on the circumstance of the event that's happening, you can call it a gift or a curse. It runs on her side of the family. All my cousins have it. My mum's older brother and sister have it. 2 of my 3 cousins from my aunt have it. So that's how she explained that to me. And I really thought she was joking at first because me and my mom, we don't have like the typical mom-son relationship. Like we're very close. I love hanging out. I love my mom, I love hanging out with her. So I thought like, haha, you're funny. And she goes, no, I'm being dead serious. She goes, the only reason I'm telling you this is because I don't want you, as you're getting older, I don't want you doing stupid things, opening yourself up to things like this. I just want you to be safe. But of course, you get a driver's license, you kind of start to rebel. Your parents say, be home by 10, I'm home by 10:01, that sort of thing. Never did drugs. I drank a little bit, never drank and drove, never did drugs, I got to be like, oh, I want to do my own thing. I'm a man now. Me and my friend decided to go to the Devil's Tree in North Jersey because I read about it in Weird New Jersey. My friend is not an open-minded person. He doesn't believe in this stuff. So he's like, yeah, let's go check out the Devil's Tree. So we drive there, we test the rumors. There wasn't any other grass or plant life growing around the tree, but I thought, okay, it's a big tree. It could be pulling a lot of nutrients from the soil or something, Again, logically, why there's nothing growing here? Didn't hear any screams. Apparently, if you put your ear to the tree, you can hear screams, things like that. We test everything I read in Weird New Jersey. We tested and did, and nothing happened. We kind of bummed out, and as souvenirs, we both took a piece of bark from the tree. That allowed whatever entity was attached to the tree to follow me back to my house and torment me and my dog for about a year. I would see it outside my window, I'd see it in my backyard. It would throw things at my house from outside. The last straw was when it was actually in my house. I came home from work, nobody else was home. My dog was having a panic attack, would not come to me. I thought there was an intruder or something, I don't know. He's barking in my bedroom, so again I'm thinking maybe an intruder or something. I go to my bedroom, this thing is just inside my bedroom, and I don't know what happened. I kind of just walk towards it, not in like a trance, just like, I guess, to confront it. I've never seen colors like this again. A dark, like, purple aura, purple eyes. Like, I know most of these entities. The other entities I've seen either don't have eye color or have red eyes. Not eyes, it was more like just a solid pupil of purple. My ceilings in that room were about 9 feet tall. It was hunched over the ceiling to be able to actually stand in my room. Big horns, not like a goat's horns that curl up, just more out with a slight curve at the top. Claws like a predator. Like, if you ever seen that picture on Google with that biologist, she's holding up that grizzly bear paw and the nails. That's what it looked like. Very predatory, very overwhelming in its presence. I wish I had more detail, but it was really just a black silhouetted demonic figure with horns glaring down at me. That's also the part that freaked me out. I have, at least in my experiences, seen that the more solid the entity is, because in order for entities to do things, appear to us, move objects, interact with our plane of existence, they need to be able to draw in energy to be able to do these things. And this thing was clearly very strong because it was very solid in its appearance. I've seen entities that are more traditionally ghost-like. They're very see-through, they're very fleeting. They're there for maybe a second or so and then they're gone. They can't really interact with things. Because I've also tried to talk to them in alternative ways. They don't have the energy to be able to interact with you. And I remember the door shutting behind me and my dog was going nuts. And I told it, I said, "You need to get out of my house." I said, "I'm sorry, I took the bark." Unfortunately, at this point, though, I had chucked the bark in the garbage. I have no idea where it was. And I had told the entity, I'm like, "You need to leave my house." Because as things like this happened, I started going on the internet and trying to think of, look at ways to protect myself from these supernatural things. I had no idea what I was doing, kind of just Googling. Mum says I can see ghosts. How do I protect myself from ghosts? Very generic things. So I did some settings, rituals, and I was able to get the entity off of my property behind my house, where the back fence was at the time, was our property line. So he, for the next 4 years, would stalk that property line. If I was in the yard with a guest, he would throw things. My dogs refused to go near that fence. And then it came to a head one night when the same friend I went to the tree with was dating this girl who was also sensitive. We didn't know that. It's the middle of summer. We're all having fun barbecuing, just, she's bouncing on my trampoline and we're all sitting on the deck just talking. Next thing we know, she screams and flies off the trampoline. So we all thought she fell off and broke her leg. So we all run and grab her and she goes, "You guys, I need to talk to you in private." And I go, "What happened? Is your leg broken? What's going on?" She goes, "No, I need to talk to you in private." So now I look at my friend like, "I don't want to go anywhere alone with your girlfriend. Please come with me." That's very uncomfortable for me. So she described the entity that she saw behind the fence. Tall, about 10 feet, horns, but a dark purple aura, and she said it was a demon. She didn't know how it got there, all this other stuff. And I told her, I'm like, I put it there, I know what it is, just do me a favor. He doesn't like when we talk about him. Let's just please go back to the party. Don't bring any more attention to it, and I will explain to you more later. And at this point, my friend's looking at me and she looks at my friend and she goes, "You know something?" And I go, "Please." I'm like, I will explain it to you later. Okay, unfortunately, after that, once it realized that she could also see him, it started. Even my brother, everybody was just watching the trees behind my fence shake. And bricks being thrown, pieces of wood, twigs being thrown at the house, to the point where my mother came out, thought we were throwing things at the house, and I just kicked out my friends. And I told my mum what happened all these years ago, how I went to the DoubleStree on purpose. The thing was, in the house for a year, didn't really bother anyone else but me, and she was reasonably mad. So I had done another ritual, and I believe I'd just expelled it totally from my area. But I don't know, I moved out a short time after that. I don't know if the entity is still present in the area, but I know it has not followed me. Nothing has followed me to the house that I'm in now. That was one of the more terrifying demonic encounters I've had. Because I've had several, unfortunately. It does seem like this is more of a curse most of the time, because it seems that negative entities, or more evil, seem to be able to draw more power to do more physical things to you. I kind of took my mum's advice and treated it more like a curse. I just kind of would study these things just to see. I'm not religious, I'll just say that as well, but it seems like studying all these demonic entities, there seems to be a lot of crossover in different cultures around the world that describe near similar entities, similar behaviors, physical descriptions. I don't know what that means. I don't know if, there is something. I don't know what's after death. I don't know if these entities could somehow travel over to our world and are messing with us. The theory about shadow people in the Middle East, if you've ever read about them, I had a job where I worked with mostly people from the Middle East. They were very nice people. Their culture was very interesting whenever they would talk about it. And somehow, one night we started talking about the jinn, and they were actually very shocked I knew that term. In their exact words, what does a white guy know about the jinn? And I said, it seems to be very, very similar to what the United States and Europeans describe as shadow people. So the theory with the jinn is that they live, at least from what I've read in some text, is that they live on a plane of existence that is basically right on top of ours. And sometimes they can cross over into our plane of existence to either just mess with us or just whatever their reasons for crossing over and allowing us to see them. Not all of them are bad and have malicious intent. It seems that most of them do. Something a little crazy too about that is I remember I submitted a story about my brother. He's not my blood brother, but he is my half-brother's brother, and we grew up together. We ended up going hiking with him over at the brick factory, and we were telling him all the stories about what happened, like what he was just mentioning, and he didn't believe us, thought we were basing, right? So him and his friends decided to go there at night. I remember him telling me this story because I was working on some conceptual art for, Red Dead Redemption. I'm sure you've heard of it. So they had this thing for Red Dead 1 called Undead Nightmare. I was doing some concept art for Undead Nightmare too, including cryptids and all that stuff. So I showed him the Dogman one I made, and we were stopped at a light, and when I showed him the picture, he froze, and you could see his hairs were up, like he got goosebumps, right? He just froze up, and I was like, hey, what's wrong, right? He was like, so I didn't listen to you. I went back to the brick factory at night with a couple of my friends, and I saw something, and I was like, what did you see? So he starts recounting a story. He went there late at night. I think it was a half moon or something like that. Said something along those lines. Him and his friends went into the brick factory. While they were walking in there, they felt like they were being watched. His friends were freaking out a little bit, but he was trying to, act all tough and be like, hey, there's nothing here, right? Even though he knew something was going on. They walk in, and in the brick factory, there's this area on the side that has a ton of trees, bushes and stuff. And in the bush that he was looking directly at, he saw about 7 to 8 feet tall Anubis-looking thing. Basically, in my opinion, I think it's the same thing that he saw 7 years ago. But he said once he saw this thing, it was about 7 to 8 feet tall, had glowing yellow eyes, and it was just staring at him and his group like it was compelling them to come towards the enemy, right? Or whatever this creature was, it just kept on eyeing them down, like, a hungry predator eyes down a gazelle or something like that. They were kind of backing up a bit, and he told me that the thing growled at them and then walked out of the bushes into the woods. And that's where he and his friends ran back to the car and just decided to get the hell out of there. I feel like he's telling the truth about the story because just the way he reacted when I showed him that picture, it scared me too. It seems like he saw something, like, how you can tell somebody's not lying with the way they react to things? That's what he was doing. Yeah, my personal theory is that area and the area of Manchester around that entire area, it's very wooded, very dense forest. I think that area is its territory, whatever this animal, creature, entity, whatever you want to call it, because it's just strange that both he and my brother, they both had experiences within like a 2-mile radius of each other. Harold and I, we were talking and we were trying to see if he can put up some trail cams around the area to see if we can capture something, just because we think that might be where it resides. I know the entity that he saw, what he told me is it's not a dog man, it's not a werewolf, it's nothing like that. Whatever he saw that night at the brick factory was some sort of demonic entity. My personal opinion is I think the dog man's flesh and blood, mostly because, I've gone into it partly Native American. I'm sure you've heard Native Americans have had stories of dogman-like creatures, Bigfoot, all that stuff. In their mythology, I told you my girl, she also had some sort of similar encounter in Cape May. She told me this after we watched, ironically, after we watched American Werewolf in London, after we watched that opening scene where the town folk react to the 2 American characters coming into the bar, then you hear that howl. She told me that. Reminded her of when she went to this small town. I think it was in Cape May, but it was like this trailer park type area that goes into the nicer area. She was saying that that scene reminded her of the entire vibe that they had for her around that time. She was working for a cable company. She was going door to door, knocking on people's doors, seeing if they wanted, internet packages, phone packages, any of that storage stuff. She was just going around town. The whole vibe was off. People were looking at her funny. She felt like she was in danger the entire day. So she ended up going to this rich man's house right near the Bay Area, and it was getting dark. After getting a drink of water and, giving him some sort of deal on the cable, she got out of there and started walking towards the trailer park area, which is close to, I think, a campground. That was what she told me. It's getting darker all of a sudden. Up ahead, she sees this large animal. Seeing as she was raised on a farm, her father was a hunter. She knows about fauna and everything, and New Jersey. So when she saw this animal, she couldn't really believe what she was seeing. Whatever it was on all fours, but it was about 5 feet tall on all fours. She was guesstimating the height. Next to her, whatever it was, it looked like a German shepherd on steroids or a wolf on steroids, like something like a direwolf from Game of Thrones, if you've seen that show. When she saw this thing, she stopped in her tracks. Right, her heart started palpitating. She basically tried stepping back a little bit quietly, and this thing, it heard her and looked directly at her. She couldn't see the eyes, but she saw that it had perked ears. Very large perked. Ears like a German shepherd or a wolf. It started approaching her, like it was hunting her. After that, she just tried to make herself believe that it was either a coyote or a coy wolf. I'm sure you've heard they're in Jersey too. They're larger coyotes, I think. It was very tall, whatever it was. I think closer to 3.5 feet, not 5, because anything 5 feet tall and above, that doesn't sound like anything that would be in New Jersey unless it's a black bear, like a very large black bear. But what she saw, it looked very canine-like, and she decided to do whatever she could do at that moment to get her out of that situation, which was scream at the top of her lungs to try to scare this thing off before it tried attacking her. She did that, and all of a sudden it seemed like, it was in hunting mode. It seemed like it deactivated that mode, kind of went back a bit and ran back into the woods. After she saw it run back into the woods, she ran towards that campground. There was a light post near this bench that she sat on for like 5 to 10 minutes, trying to calm herself down, trying to calm her heart down. After she calmed herself down, she went to her next customer's house. It was the woman that was in the written part of the story. The woman could see that my girl was very off, not in the best of moods, and she was like, "What are you doing out here? This place is very dangerous, and there are very strange things around here and creepy people." including criminals around this area. You need to call your supervisor and get the heck out of here. That's what the woman told her. And right after that, she called up her supervisor and got the heck out of there. She told me that until now, she didn't think it was a cryptid experience or anything like that, nothing like a dog man. She thought it was a coyote. But, we've had conversations all together about these sorts of creatures, and she's come to the conclusion that whatever she saw that night was maybe a juvenile or maybe just a dog man on all fours. Because I know they can go on all fours and go on two legs too. Now, This was quite recently when this happened. I was coming home from work, and the area she was living at is in the Chesterfield area, which is actually a very old town. It dates back all the way to the Revolutionary War. Very haunted sort of thing, apparently. There's a cannonball stuck in one of the buildings over there. I was driving to her house on the way back from work, and I saw something come onto the road while I was driving, and it was very, 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 very big, canine-like thing. I'm pretty sure it was like a wolf or something, maybe a wolf that came down from up north, but I don't know for sure, because the way my car is, the mirror is about up here, right? And this is the height of how tall the canine was that I saw. I told her about it. It was as soon as I got back, and the funny thing is, she saw something like that a few nights beforehand, driving back from work as well. So that creeped me the hell out when she told me that. It's just, I know it sounds unbelievable. It's kind of hard to believe in my case, because, I try to be a very logical person, but seeing these sorts of creatures, it just makes the world a lot more scary than it is. So, like I said, this story stretches over a number of years. Back when I was at my community college, getting my associate's degree, one of my classes was the biology of the pine barrens. And for the labs, my professor would have us drive out there. He would bring us to different locations talking about whatever biology, which included anything, plants, wildlife, things in the ground. So we did end up going to the Brooks Bay brick factory because of naturally occurring iron ore in the ground. So he was talking about that to us, giving us the whole lesson about that. And then he kind of said, okay, take a couple of minutes and walk around, if you want to explore the area. And again, it was cool, the ruins are nothing special. The pictures that you see on Google do a pretty good justice, but it's an interesting area to walk around. There's actually a lot of trails around there too. It's very quiet, kind of like in the middle of nowhere sort of thing. But then I heard him. He was a very serious man. He was not like a joking guy. Even when I would try to make jokes, he would just look at me with that straight face like, be quiet, I'm teaching. But I heard him. I thought he was making a joke. He goes, oh no, just don't come here at night. So I'm like, oh, what is it? Haunted? And he kind of just looked at me and he's like, okay, let's go to the next location. And I'm like, oh, you didn't give me an answer. So I harassed him for the next month. I would show up to his office hours. I'm like, what do you know about the brick factory? Because I was just curious. So after a month of him wanting to almost choke me, Finally, he told me that some of his students had allegedly gone back or had gone back to the factory at night because behind it, there's a big open field with very little light pollution, mostly used for stargazing. His students say they hear the laugh of a little girl or see this man kind of off in the distance, always looking at them. Very odd things happen. And I looked at him and I go, that's it? That's what you were so secretive about? Then he said he had heard some other things. He didn't really go into detail. He just said I should avoid it. It was at night, so I thought, okay, I got it. A few months later, I went back there at night with a friend of mine. Nothing happened, and we decided to go back a second time. He wanted to go back in the day to see it before it got dark. So we went back there about an hour before sunset. He's taking pictures. We're, just talking, having a good time. On the way out, he's a little bit ahead of me. We were planning to go down the street to Wendy's, grab a bite to eat and come back at night. I had my camera gear. I had an EMF detector I got off of Amazon. So on the way out, he's a little bit ahead of me and I hear something walking behind me. It wasn't big, so I turned around quickly thinking, what's that? Maybe it was a deer or something. I see a white wolf-like creature. But I know there are no wolves in Jersey, so I guessed it was probably just a really big husky, a solid white husky. I'm thinking, okay, There are houses close by, not super close, but close enough. This dog looks healthy, so I'm sure it was able to get here from there. I'm trying to call it over like, you know, this is my dog. I want somebody to grab him for me. I'm like, hey, come here, come here. Then I noticed its eyes, these beautiful green eyes I've never seen on an animal before. We're just staring at each other and I'm just admiring this thing's eyes. It's cold, like, this is really a good-looking dog. And then this dog sits. As I walk over to it to grab it, it just turns into a puff of smoke and disappears. So I turn around to my friend and I'm like, I'm just going to use the acronym JJ, tell me you saw that. And he goes, saw what? I go, did you just keep going? He goes, well, I thought you stopped to maybe tie your shoe or something. So I'm like, no, I told him what I saw and he didn't believe me. And reasonably so, I'm like, okay, it does seem like a weird thing to lie about, but I let it go. I didn't really think about the experience other than that. We went, we ate, and we came back at night. Both of our phones were charged. I'm also a photographer, so my batteries are always charging. I give him one of my cameras and I go to put the batteries in the other one for me. He goes, John, the battery's dead. I go, what? I'm like, that's weird. I take it and I'm like, okay, maybe I forgot to charge a battery. So I put in a new battery. The LCD screen lights up and I said, okay, here, this one's full. I go back to my camera. He said, John, the camera just died. I go, that's impossible. I'm like, okay, there's no way both of these batteries just died. I'm thinking there's probably just something wrong with my camera. So I put it back, and unbeknownst to me, in my pocket, I had the EMF detector. He, out of his peripheral vision, kept seeing it spike. He didn't tell me about that. Putting batteries in my camera, it's full, it's good, then it would die. Did this a couple more times. So I look at him, I go, well, I guess maybe, I don't know, something's wrong with my cameras. And then I look at the EMF detector and it's spiking. So now I'm thinking, is there an entity pulling power from the battery? And now me and him kind of have this weird feeling that we should leave, and even he was like, I have a bad feeling, I think we should just go. And I'm like, no, I'm like, let's go, come on, maybe we'll see something. Again, in my rebellious phase here, let's go see something, come on, sure, it'll be cool, right? But the whole time I'm shaking, holding the EMF detector. It keeps spiking. We get about halfway into the trail. We weren't using flashlights. It was a full moon. Halfway down the dirt trail to the factory, we see a 7-foot-tall shadow person leaning against a tree, like with its arm, like he was just waiting for us. So I turn to my friend and I'm like, please tell me you see that. He goes, I see it. And we both just turn around and start to run. And then I remember coming to at the factory. So this is the part that bothers me. So I'm running to my car and then I'm at the factory. And my friend said he turned around, I'd stopped running, the entity was gone, and I just turned around, started walking to the factory, and he just kind of like followed behind me, thinking that he should follow as he didn't want to be alone. So we ended up booking it from there. We were running, and the next thing I know is I'm standing at the factory, confused. My friend's panicking. He says, you stopped running, you kind of just started walking back to the factory, and I followed you. I wouldn't snap out of it, apparently. I don't remember that. So we just got back to where the cars were and left. And I've been back there, not at night. The light definitely makes me feel better, but I have been back there and I have seen who I assume was the caretaker of the property. Man, probably a little bit taller than me. I would describe him as average build, normal haircut, normal short brown hair. Every time I've seen him, he's wearing a t-shirt and a pair of jeans. Never really saw the shoes or boots. When I see him, he's usually too far off in the distance for me to see what he's wearing on his feet. And I have not seen the girl, but I have had other people with me say that they've heard her giggle, not like a bad way. I think she's just more or less just a kid. Those experiences, I always told my friend and his brothers, I'm like, nothing related to the canine, funny enough. But I said, listen, that area, it's active. Just because they're open-minded, I just wouldn't recommend you guys go there at night for just the reasons of safety, or at least just have multiple people in case something happens. There's an emergency. Like I said, I don't go back there at night anymore. But the Brooks Bay brick factory did burn down. That's why it's now an abandoned set of ruins. there's a lot of negative energy there, so it could potentially be that negative spirits are just attracted to it. So I'm not going to lie. The first time I went there, I felt nothing. And it's one of those things where I thought, at first, like it said, Rowan, everyone and their mother, oh, it's haunted. Yeah, they heard a twig break. Well, we're in the middle of the pine barrens, so there's wildlife. That's why twigs break. But with the negative entity, yeah, as soon as we like stepped into the tree line, we both kind of had that gut feeling of like just almost a primal fear. When you're with your dude friends, as a dude, you never cave into that. You're just like, just keep going. I'm manly. And then as soon as something happens, like, oh, let's get out of here. So that's kind of what that was like. I'm not afraid. Are you afraid? Okay, let's go. Even though we're both absolutely terrified. I'll admit that. Absolutely terrified. Also, you should be. I remember you telling me when we originally told that story that you got sick afterwards, like really, really sick. Like, I just think it was my body reacting to the negative energy. I don't have an explanation for this one. I've read a few things. After me and my friend got back to the car, I had started to feel a little groggy on the way home. I'm like, okay, a surge of adrenaline, you know, it's going to make you feel a little kind of like a crash, like from a lot of caffeine is how I would describe it. When you have a fever and you have that, like you just have no strength to you. That's what I felt like for a couple of days afterwards. I really didn't have an explanation for it. I just told my mum I wasn't feeling good. I got to stay home from, well, it was college. I chose to stay home from those classes because I couldn't really physically get out of bed without exerting a lot of effort. And I did. I came across a couple of things online that said potentially if you're possessed or if a spirit is draining energy from you, your body needs time to recover that energy. Basically, it's kind of like how if we lose blood, our body produces more. That's what this person compared it to on the website, whereas your body just needs time to recreate your energy. It was odd. I felt like garbage after that. Listen, here's the thing. I respect everyone's... If some of these stories didn't happen to me personally, I would also say you're entitled to believe what you think you saw, and I'm entitled to believe differently. And listen, it's not ever even people that are like open-minded and have seen supernatural stuff before. Sometimes you get like these Facebook groups and you start talking about your experiences and these other people are like, that didn't happen to you. It's like, well, we're in this group for a reason. We're not looking for support. We're just looking to swap stories. Like, hey, I have also had encounters with a similar entity like that. And there's no point in you saying that didn't happen. If we're just here to just talk about our experiences, that's all. Some events do happen fairly close to each other. But sometimes I go years without having any sort of paranormal experience happen, and then one day something just happens, and I'm like, okay, can I find a logical explanation as to what just happened? And if I can't, then I kind of go to like the supernatural route, you know, doors closing, drapes blowing around, easily explainable gusts of wind, you know, houses have drafts, you know, but if a glass of water gets thrown at me and I'm the only one home alone, a little bit harder to explain rationally. That's never happened to me before. I'm giving just a random example of like there's a lot of things that even on these Facebook pages I'm a part of where we just exchange stories. You know, people say, oh, I was home alone and with my dog and he was upstairs. I heard a door close. You don't think it's possible? Maybe the dog closed the door, like, and mind you, I would never comment that. I'm just like, okay, like if that's that person's experience, then that's that person's experience. And I don't want to take it away from them or make them feel stupid for posting it. So I just leave it alone. Like, I just feel like we all got to respect each other. That's why it took my friend here so long to get me to do this. Cause I'm like, I don't want to, like, come on, we're going to get ridiculed. He's like, no, he'll blow out our faces and everything. I'm like, all right, like, listen, I'm more than willing to share my stories. And even on Facebook, I'll post anonymously. It's one of those things where it's like, I just don't want any of my family members to see it, sort of thing. Because, like, especially on my mother's side, we always talk about this. But her family prefers to keep it on the down low, you know, because they just think it's like, you know, everyone's going to think we're crazy. And I know people like that who won't share their experiences because they think like they're going to throw me into an asylum. I'm like, look, if you're not hurting yourself, if you're not hurting other people, and just every now and then you see things out of the corner of your eye, I don't think that your family is going to want you locked up. I mean, there are some extreme parents that would probably do that to their children, and that's extremely unfortunate. But like I said, if you're not hurting yourself, you're not hurting people around you. If you're not having voices in your head telling you to do bad things, share your experiences. The worst thing that happens, somebody says that's not true, and then they go to tell another person that this SD. You're not even out of the car. You just start to get close to it, and your body just has this natural, like almost like a primal fear. Like there's something not right. My body doesn't like it. I don't see anything. I don't hear anything. It's making me feel like this, but there's something in my body that just wants to get as far away as possible. So I've been to places like that where it's like, I'm not even getting out of the car. Actually, I'm going to drive away while you guys hang out, and I'll come pick you back up. That's like, there's some places like that. I have no explanation. My settings, conversations about it occasionally. He liked to talk about Leona, which is like an entity in, oh my God, I'm going to botch the part of the world it's from. It's one of those, talking about that, I'm pretty sure. It's from Guatemala. Guatemala, thank you. Yes, so he's from Guatemala, so he used to talk about Leona, and I used to ask him questions because I was just curious, like, hey, growing up with that culture, what was it like? They treated it like, oh, it wasn't an entity. They treated it like it was a real physical being that you had to respect. So to get like someone's opinion on that was it was pretty unique, because most of these people are like, yeah, I went to visit, this place and this weird thing attacked me. But to the locals, that's just like something that, happens. But we were talking one day, and he's a very nice guy, and he tells me, he's like, this facility, there's a guy, I can't even say haunts it. I've been in there alone, things have tipped over. It's more like getting your attention sort of thing, but never really bothered me. So I just kind of ignored it. So he was telling me like, oh yeah, he's always moving stuff, and he's always trying to do things to get our attention. So I'm like, that's interesting, I've had similar things happen to me on my side of the warehouse complex, but again, nothing crazier than, that little object got knocked off the shelf, and it never really bothered me, so I just left it alone, right? I don't want to invoke anything, so I'm just going to let it be, okay? And then I'm working one day, the owner, his stepdad, or like one of the girls working his office sometimes, they would come, they would give me the information for the party so I could prep the equipment, and I play very loud music. So sometimes I wouldn't even know that they were in the building, like behind me, until like I would turn around and see them, just because I was in this warehouse for like 8 to 12 hours a day. So I would just get lost in my music. So sure enough, one day I'm on a ladder, and I see a figure out of the corner of my eye, and I'm thinking, oh, it's one of them to give me something. So I'm carrying a box. I can't really turn around on the ladder. So an older teenager, young man, however you want to word it. The only thing I could really notice about him, just because it was so abundant, I didn't really look for any other details, was his skull was cracked open and his face was covered in blood. And he kind of just had a look of like horror or like fear. Caught me off guard for sure. We were standing there staring at each other for a couple of seconds, and then he just kind of blinked out of existence. So I went over to talk to Hector. I went to the other building and I asked, so was AG here? I just want to ask him something real quick. And I said, H, let me ask you something. You seem to know a lot about the guy, the entity in this facility. And he goes, yeah. I'm like, before you tell me anything, I'm going to ask you one question. By chance, did he die related to a head injury? And he goes, yeah, he fell. He was doing something on the ceiling and fell down and cracked his skull open. That's how he died. And he goes, why do you ask? I'm like, I just saw him on my side of the building. He just kind of popped up behind me and stared at me. So it's just like, sometimes things like that happen where it's not evil. It's scary, but it's not, it's just like them trying to get your attention. I'll tell you, in the 9 years I worked for your stepdad, the forehead area, it was like cracked, like the skull itself was cracked. It wasn't open, but you could see like from the crack, blood again just covered his face. Yeah, like it was very, I can't say it was right behind me. He was maybe like 5 or 6 feet away from me. I again saw him out of my peripheral walking, so I assumed it was either my boss or one of my co-workers trying to give me some paperwork or something. So that's why I didn't even initially react. I'm like, let me just get down off the ladder, put the box down so I could turn around and, see them. Now, would it have been any different? Maybe if I had decided to put the box back on the shelf and turn around and look. I don't know, but I always thought it was weird that the only time he ever appeared to me, so we had like scaffolding where we would have like the equipment stacked like 3 or 4 levels. I thought it was weird that the only time he ever appeared to me was when I was at the top of that ladder, the scaffolding basically, with my head touching the ceiling, carrying a box. That's the only time he ever appeared to me, and I was alone. Usually you're not supposed to go up there alone, but I needed what was in that box. So I'm like, the box, it's heavy, but it's not like it's going to make it awkward for me to get it down the ladder, because if there was something up there that I didn't feel comfortable grabbing, it would sit up there and die. Somebody else in the warehouse would. Yeah, the only time that he... I know his name, but that's the only time. Interesting footage. I always send it your way because I know you get a kick out of it and you like sharing it with the...
Huge. I'm very open to believing that these things can exist. Dinosaurs existed 65 million years ago. What's to rule out that, a more evolved version of a gorilla with Sasquatch or, an evolved canine exists? That's the way I look at it. Yeah, something like dinosaurs can exist. So stuff like that can exist too, especially with all the legends that we have throughout our history. It's crazy. Egyptians, Native Americans. I think I told you this, but I'm also 25% Native American. I have Mayan, Arak, and what was the last one? Mayan, Arak, and Teo. I have those 3 in my blood, so I also have a theory that when that encounter happened with me and my friends at that park, I think the reason why it followed me home was because of my DNA. I feel like it was trying to get me back in my house, so I'm forever grateful my friends saw that before we went inside, because that still terrifies me. To this day, that's going on the thumbnail, bro. It still terrifies me. That's the statement. Like, even retelling the story, I'm sure you could tell I was getting really nervous.
Because, you did sound like you were going to cry and not going to lie to you.
Yeah, when we saw that, my heart was, pumping out of my chest.
Well, yeah, you're reliving a traumatic experience.
Yeah, I thought it looked like Slender. That's what it looked like. So I was, kind of confused for a second, but then I was like, oh, my friend said skin thing. So yeah, then I was like, oh, okay, we got to get the hell out of here. But yeah, I'm very glad that you gave us the opportunity to speak about our encounters. Thank you for that. It's going to be a fun episode, and we'll let you know what happens in the future, because we're going to be exploring some of the areas in the daytime, not at night, because we don't like doing that.
But yeah, the pit's coming with us, that's for sure.
Yeah, please, it's going Tompus.
Yeah, out of all of us, he's going to be the first one to know something's going on.
Then he'll be the first one to run away and leave us for dead.
Have made it this far? I want you to all comment below New Joy, so that way I know who made it to the end and who didn't. And if you guys enjoy content like this where we deep dive into cases that are strange and supernatural, then what are you waiting for? Slap that like and subscribe button right now to never miss another episode. And as always, never forget, I love you all, keep an open mind, and I'll see you all in the very next